See, when you spend a lot of time outside in the sun, you will feel exhausted, right? Though sun is the source of energy because of which we are alive, if you spend too much of time outside, the heat in the body reaches extremes. People get burnt, right? Then you use the sunscreen and whatnot. There's already enough fire in you. On top of that, if you start to spend a lot of time outside, you start to boil on the inside. The best way to do is stay away from this. Imagine you start to practice for 2.5 hours. If you do the same practice outside in the sun, how will you feel? You'll feel exhausted. Now you practice indoors even for 3 hours, you feel more rejuvenated. This concept of practicing outdoor, maybe it's just for interaction, just to socialize with people, it makes more sense. But you can't do outdoor practice every single day. It doesn't make any sense at all. And as I've told you before, you're still a small lamp. A small lamp's importance is felt only when it is kept in a small room. If you place a small lamp in the middle of the ocean, it by default loses its identity. It's lost. And when you're doing a lot of sadhana, if you spend a lot of time in front of a blazing fire, too much of heat that comes from the fire is not good for you. Because when you're doing a certain set of practices, we have something called as homeostasis. It is that state where all the systems in our body is functioning the way it has to function. It is stable. There is no ups, there is no downs. Everything is going the way it has to go. When you spend a lot of time in front of fire, naturally that the heat from the physical fire has an adverse effect on the body. See, when you're cold, you light a fire, you sit in front of it, the body gets warm. Imagine you are staying in a place where actually the body temperature is whatever it has to be naturally. Have you ever seen an Indian home having a corner dedicated to fire? But in the West, they have a place where they burn wood so that they get heat from it to keep themselves warm. Have you ever seen an Indian home that has something like this? Definitely not in the south, at least. Maybe when you go the northern part, like Jammu, Kashmir, and those parts of India, there every house has a place where they burn wood. The internal temperature is warm. So when you are doing all the sadhana, you're doing all the practices, we are focusing on maintaining a stable state. That's why we say stay away. Second one, you can't indulge yourself in fulfilling your desires just for the sake of pleasure only. What we call here as company of the opposite sex. Definitely no. And you also know. See, the purpose of giving birth is very sacred and procreation must be driven by a purpose. There are people who just pursue this out of pleasure. What does that happen? The energy is drained out. The best example for this is the rishis of the earlier times. They used to have family. They used to have kids. And yet, when you go and have a conversation with them, you don't feel like, they have a family at all. They have kids, have everything that a normal household family has, but yet you feel like, oh no, there's something very unique with respect to these guys. What is this? They give birth to share the knowledge that they have accumulated so that it is not lost, and so that the experiences that they have had, the knowledge that they have inculcated is passed on to the next generation. This must be the purpose of giving birth.